Steve Deace is the foremost authority on the whole COVID pandemic. Steve, please explain to me and the audience how and why we know the vaccine has been a failure.
Brother, how do I load thee? Let me count the ways. First of all, it's great that we can freely discuss this now that they're getting ready to pin the whole damn thing on Trump. All right, so now that they're getting ready to do that, we can freely tell you the truth. It really goes back to August 6th of last year, Jason. On August 6th of last year, Rochelle Walensky, head of CDC, went on CNN with Wolf Blitzed and admitted on national television on August 6th of last year that the vaccines no longer stopped the spread of the virus and that those who are vaccinated can also spread the virus. She admitted this on national television on August 6th of last year. It wasn't until earlier this week that YouTube said it would not censor you any longer for repeating what the CDC director said on August 6th of last year. Why is that date important? Because on September 9th, a full month, Jason, after Rochelle Walensky admitted this on national television, a full month after that, on September the 9th, President Biden issued an executive order he had said earlier in the year he had no authority to issue, and that was demanding a mandate of a vaccination in order to work at a private industry in America, including the military and healthcare workers in the public sector as well. So here's the first question. Why are we mandating an experimental technology? It is not fully authorized. The version of the Pfizer vaccine that is fully authorized is actually not sold in the U.S. and never will be. So this is all still experimental. It is all still under an emergency use of authorization in EUA. We started to mandate something that wasn't going to stop you from getting the virus. What would be the possible medical justification for that? Answer, there isn't any. It was just about power and coercion. By the time we got to the end of last year, on New Year's Eve in New York City, Jason, on New Year's Eve 2021, one of the most vaxxed cities in America, there were more people in ICU for COVID on New Year's Eve 2021 in New York City than there were in the year 2020. We had more COVID cases and more COVID deaths when you prorate for when COVID started being marked in March of 2020. We had more of them in 2021 despite the existence of their quote-unquote vaccines. We had more of that, both of those things in 2021 than we had in 2020. In 2021, the CDC changed the definition of the term vaccine. It now no longer means something that is an inoculation that stops you from getting the infection. Now it's just a therapeutic. So I guess aspirin now is a vaccine. Vitamin D, vitamin C, these are vaccines. Why did they do this? So they could market and brand and sell their vaccines. See, folks, this is what happens when the government gets into bed with the vaccine manufacturers. It already gave them unlimited liability protection, so you can't sue them if they hurt you. It doesn't regulate them now because they are investors, the biggest investors, and then it mercilessly promotes and then ruthlessly coerces you into taking the product that they created, the very definition of fascism. And now we are sitting here in 2022, Jason, and we now know what a sudden adult death syndrome is. Never heard of anything like this before. You look at the excess death numbers here in the United States, they're trending higher anyway. You look at the excess death numbers in Scotland trending higher, while, by the way, the birth rate trends lower because we know from numerous studies that these spiked proteins produced by these vaccines love to hang out in the ovaries and the testes. That's why we've got studies showing 42% of women are having menstrual irregularities, including postmenopausal bleeding. We've got studies showing sperm motility decreases for up to 6 months after being fully vaccinated. And then, of course, there are the cardiac issues. The study out of Thailand that showed 18% of teenage boys had irregular EKGs shortly after getting a full dose of the Pfizer vaccine, because that won't matter at all when they're 50 and 60. That won't take any time out of their lives at all. Well, the kids recover from myocarditis, Steve. Yeah, but your heart now has tread on its tires on the back end that it's not supposed to have when you're 13, 23, 31 years old. I could go on and on and on. All the data markers are there, and it's because of that they're starting to back away. And now you've got Moderna suing Pfizer. That was announced this morning. Moderna now suing Pfizer, so I guess the Assyrians and the Babylonians are going to fight, suing Pfizer for patent violation, Pfizer BioNTech. There's really only one way to prove a patent violation, and that is to show your cards, what you've actually done, what you've actually created, because FDA didn't want you to see what was in these vaccines for 75 years until a federal judge ruled otherwise earlier this year. The amount of fraud here, the amount of death here. If you look at Australia, for example, the Australian government has to provide remuneration for vaccine injury. It admitted about 2 weeks ago that over 79,000 people had serious vaccine injury in Australia, which requires compensation from the government. If you take the fact that they've vaccinated 21 million plus people in Australia, that's 0.3%, which coincidentally is the infection fatality rate for COVID before we ever begin to stratify for age or comorbidity, which shows on a societal population health level, there's no net benefit. You're assuming about the same percentage of risk from the vaccine as you are from the virus itself at 0.3. But if you were to prorate that, Jason, 0.3% of all people that we have given this jab to in the world would have a serious adverse effect. That could be death, that could be myocarditis, it could be GBS or some other neurological syndrome. That turns out, since we've given these jabs to 5.3 billion people in the world, that's 16 million people in this world. 16 million people in this world that we have given a serious adverse event to for a virus that before we even stratified for age and comorbidity, they had a 0.3 chance of dying from. In none of the 9 realms in the Marvel Cinematic Universe would any sane public administrator say that trade-off is worth the risk, that the juice is worth the squeeze, that it's worth this level of coercive behavior from government to demand that you get them. The very president that tried to force you to take these last year has tested positive for COVID twice. After being jabbed 4 times, including 8 days in a row. His wife tested positive just this week for a second time. They told us that Paxlovid, their miracle drug to replace ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine they couldn't make any money off of, that rebound COVID with Paxlovid would take that was going to happen less than 1% of the time. So what are the odds that 2 of the guys getting the best healthcare they can provide, Joe Biden and Anthony Fauci, both got rebound COVID on Paxlovid? If they were in the 1%, what do you think the odds really are? Jason, as Steve Rodgers once famously said, I could do this all day. So I'll go back and end with where I started. How do I load thee? Let me count the ways.
Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Friday to you and yours. Thank you, Steve Deace, for getting us off to a fiery start. Love that cold open. Love what Steve brings to the table. He is the smartest person talking about COVID and this whole deal, and he has given us a great setup for today's show that we're about to get into. TJ Moe's going to be here. Delano Squires is going to be here. I'm going to go down memory lane with a former Ball State teammate of mine and friend, longtime friend, Lem Jones, and a personal story. Stay tuned for that. You don't want to miss that discussion with Lem Jones. We were classmates, schoolmates, teammates at Ball State. Lem's walk and journey in life, come to find out, mirroring mine. You don't want to miss that conversation with Lem Jones, dear friend of mine from Ball State. We'll get into that, but we're going to start right where Steve Deace has led us. I want to go back. I want to continue a conversation we started yesterday with Royce White, and I wanted Steve to give us a foundation to talk about the vaccines and COVID and all of that, because he is the authority. He's written the Faucian Bargain. Now he and Daniel Horowitz have a second book coming out about this whole COVID pandemic and how it's been mishandled. Steve Deace is the ultimate authority. He's given us a great foundation to look at and discuss how I want to discuss this COVID issue and why I believe apologies, major apologies in the sports world and the media space are owed to Kyrie Irving and Aaron Rodgers. I said this yesterday when talking to Royce White. Kyrie Irving at the time, I talked about on this show, Kyrie Irving, basically his move, his willingness to sacrifice money and to sit out the NBA season over the vaccine mandates. I said it at the time, and I definitely believe it now. This was the closest thing we've seen from an athlete resembling Muhammad Ali. Close, and people laughed at me. How can you compare him to Muhammad Ali? That's crazy, blah, blah, blah. Because you were all had your heads completely up the rear end of the establishment and big pharma and all the people lying to you. And now look where we are right now in 2022. Who was right, who was wrong? Was Muhammad Ali, according to all the historians and everybody, was he right about the Vietnam War? Was Kyrie Irving right about the vaccine? And why aren't people lining up to give Kyrie Irving an apology? Same people need to line up and give Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers quarterback, an apology. Aaron Rodgers, and I don't care that he was misleading or whatever. He was dead right. The guy went on the Pat McAfee show and explained to everybody why he didn't want to take the vaccine. And hats off to him. Hats off to Kyrie Irving and the people that are not standing up and acknowledging that they were dead wrong and that they misled people. They were the inappropriate people. They're cowards. And again, about to start calling them out. Don't hate these people. I don't hate these people. I'm just dealing with the facts. Many of them I like and respect, but I'm going to deal with the facts and ask, why aren't these people offering up apologies to Kyrie Irving and Aaron Rodgers? Let's start with, and again, I don't have, even though I'm critical of him, I don't have great animus towards Stephen A. Smith. I don't have great animus towards Stephen A. Smith. I have animus towards this environment, this culture we've created, where all of these people are towing the establishment, globalist, groupthink lie and carrying water for all of us. So we're going to start with a fat clip of Stephen A. Smith going after Kyrie Irving over his vaccine stance. Let's play the clip.
Should our position on Kyrie change?
Yes, it should change in regards to Kyrie. It should be even worse than we originally imagined. You know, I have to be, and I try to be, incredibly careful, fellas, in terms of I try to focus on what you do, not who you are. People make mistakes. None of us are flawless. All of us have made mistakes. We'll continue to make mistakes. None of us are perfect, and we get all of that. But I've been covering the NBA now for almost 25 years. I mean, this is some of the stupidest nonsense I've ever seen. Just flat out stupid. So let me get this straight. So if the reports are true, because we don't know whether they are or not, okay, but let's give credit to Sham and others who have reported this. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. Let's go with that, okay? If it is true, Jay, if it is true, Marcus, so you don't have a problem with taking the vaccine, your position is that you're going to sit up there and compromise the championship aspirations of an organization you signed on to represent. You coaxed Kevin Durant into signing on to represent. You played the role in coaxing James Harden into signing on to represent. You're going to compromise all of that because you want to give a voice to the voiceless. Really? And how is that going to work out for you, Kyrie Irving? You're going to disappear from the game of basketball? Who the hell is going to be interested in what you have to say when you have proven that you can't even be trusted enough to do your damn job? A job you volunteered for. This ain't the military where you were drafted. You chose to play basketball. You chose to enter the NBA. You chose to sign that contract as a free agent to go to the Brooklyn Nets. You chose Brooklyn as your destination. You chose the Nets franchise to represent. You asked KD and James Harden to come on board with you in Brooklyn to establish your own legacy, and then you leave them hanging. Because of what exactly? Your own individual principle? I am not calling Kyrie Irving stupid. Kyrie Irving, I happen to believe, is an intelligent brother whose heart is in the right place. But now you've regressed to an alarming level of self-righteousness. It not only makes you look hypocritical and untrustworthy, it makes you look what I know you are not, which is flat out stupid. It's the stupidest thing that I think I've encountered with NBA players. You're gonna sit up there and not play and not take a vaccine that evidently it's not you. You don't have a problem with it according to the reports. You just want to give a voice to the voiceless.
So Kyrie is the stupid one. He's the misguided one. He's the one person in the NBA that stood out there with a big pair and let them hang and tried to be a voice to the voiceless. Tried to tell people, hey, be careful with this vaccine. We're young, we're healthy, there's no reason for us to be taking this. But Kyrie's the stupid one. And again, what I'm about to say will sound like a personal attack. I don't dislike Stephen A. Smith. I get what he's doing. But this is what you do, and this is what you sound like when you've been bought and paid for. People love to talk about who's a sellout, who's not a sellout, who keeps it real. That's what selling out looks and sounds like. And I say that because Stephen A. Smith is not a doctor. He's not a scientist. He's a sports pontificator that got on TV and blasted this young man about a vaccine that Stephen A. Smith does not know anything about. Stephen A. Smith can have his opinion, but to sit on TV and call this young man stupid because he's sitting there, hey, because Kyrie, I don't know what his religion is, but he's spiritual and believes in God, and he believes in God's design. And so that level of intelligence led Kyrie Irving to believe, oh, I'm not putting this vaccine in my perfectly healthy young body. And Steve, you're going to compromise the championship and not take the vaccine. You compromised your health. And a bunch of other people compromised their health taking a vaccine that now the CDC and everybody else says doesn't prevent COVID. It's virtually worthless. You compromised your health over that. Kyrie Irving didn't. He was brave. He was courageous. If the rest of the NBA players had his balls and his courage, they all would have refused to take it. But everybody hopped on the coward train. And we already know many of these athletes didn't take it. They got fake vaccine cards and all that, but they weren't man enough to stand on their own 2 feet and refuse to take it and try to be a voice for people people that got ran out of their jobs because they wouldn't take this worthless vaccine. And I'm not talking about millionaire people that got ran out of their jobs. I'm talking about working class people living check to check that didn't want to take this vaccine. Kyrie tried to stand up for him, and Stephen A. Smith is blasting him. This is what selling out looks like. And y'all need to quit thinking that it's some certain color or it's you got to be racist or you got to be conservative to sell out. No, selling out is when they hand you a $12, $13 million a year contract to say what you're told to say. That's what selling out is. And Stephen A. Smith sold out, and he owes Kyrie Irving an apology. And he needs to admit, hey, I didn't know what I was talking about. I was running my mouth because that's what they told me I had to do to collect this check. I do not dislike Stephen A. Smith. I dislike the way he handled this COVID conversation. Well, the whole conversation well above his pay grade and base of knowledge. Same applies for Mike Wilbon. And y'all know I like Mike Wilbon. And I respect Mike Wilbon. Completely out of pocket. We got a clip of him attacking Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving over this vaccine. Let's play it.
Yeah, I don't get it. It just feels like at this point now, somebody's trying to make a statement or a point to flex their authority. But, you know, everybody out here looking for attention, and that's what I feel like the mayor wants right now, some attention, you know.
All right, Michael Wilbon, how do we react to that?
Kevin Durant is too aware and too plugged in to say something that impertinent. What's the point of that? Want some attention? You want to call out somebody, call out your teammate. Tell him to get a shot. Because he's got plenty of them, because he could have gone to grade school in metropolitan New York without vaccines. I mean, all these guys want to be so irresponsible and not accountable enough to look at this dude and tell him, you want to play with us? Put a shot in your arm. The vaccine is not about attention. People died, hundreds of thousands of them, from this virus. And you think the mayor of New York needs to attend to a basketball team's needs, your needs, before he needs to attend to the needs of a metropolitan area, the biggest in America? Are you kidding me? I mean, Kevin Durant, there's some knuckleheads who would say stuff like this. I'd probably let it go. Kevin Durant is too smart and too plugged in. Everybody wants to tell you how woke they are, and then I got to hear something like that? That's offensive. Stop.
You go on national TV, that's NBA Countdown, that's got a nice audience, maybe 1 million viewers. Mike, you can't go on national TV and tell another man what to do with his body. You can't do it. That's completely out of pocket. We love to talk about who's pocket watching, who's counting somebody else's money. I got no problem with that. You want to sit up and gossip about somebody else's money? That's harmless. Going on TV and telling another man or woman what drugs they need to inject into their body from Big Pharma. Are y'all kidding me? Big Pharma? That's in Big Pharma we trust now? Big Pharma, the drug companies, that's who we should trust on something they rush through, not all the proper protocols that they rush through. We're on TV telling another man to shoot something into his body. Y'all owe Kyrie Irving an apology. Y'all owe the American people an apology. This is crazy. This is lunacy. This is irresponsible. We're sports writers. We talk about sports for a living. We don't go on TV demanding that people inject drugs into their bodies, experimental vaccines. This is completely inappropriate. And I don't care how big of a check they cut you. Kyrie Irving was dead right. The fact that the national media isn't talking about this right now, that Kyrie Irving, Aaron Rodgers, and anybody else that had a brain and a pair were dead right. No way these young people should have been injecting this experimental vaccine into their body. The results, the data, the information from around the globe is backing up all of their instincts. They were right. You were wrong. Admit it. Apologize. You demonized and villainized Kyrie Irving over nothing, over that man doing exactly what he was supposed to do. Make his own decision. Stand on his own 2 feet. And just because he had the courage to risk his money and his notoriety and reputation to do what he believed, and everybody over at ESPN, I wish I could think of the name of that woman. Maybe her name was Allison or whatever. Allison that lost her job at ESPN because she wouldn't take the vaccine because they required it at ESPN. And so everybody over at ESPN is pro-vaccine because I had to do it to keep my job and to keep collecting this check. I know it's stupid, but I want everybody else to be as stupid as me. That's what's driving this. Selling out and wanting everybody to be, we're all jumping off buildings. You jump too. We're all drinking Jim Jones's Kool-Aid. You drink the Kool-Aid too. This is incredible that the news is coming out day after day after day after day that this vaccine, they backed up the CDC, now basically admits it doesn't prevent COVID. Jill and Joe Biden done had the damn virus 4 or 5 times each. The death rate for young people across the globe is going through the roof. People dropping dead, perfectly healthy athletes dropping dead for no reason, unexplained. Kyrie Irving was right, and so was Aaron Rodgers. And I don't care that he lied and misled people about whether he took the vaccine or not. It wasn't none of your business in the first place what the man did. He didn't owe you that kind of honesty. That's between him, his doctor, and his God if he believes in one. It wasn't our business. So if he misled y'all on what he injected or didn't inject into his body, that's on you for caring. I didn't care. None of my business. But Ryan Clark, he want to jump out there and beat up Aaron Rodgers. Look how tough I am. I'm taking on Aaron Rodgers. He's deceitful. He's entitled. He's this, he's that. Aaron Rodgers was right. Play the Ryan Clark clip.
We shouldn't be surprised. Is anybody surprised that Aaron Rodgers acted entitled, that he was self-centered, that there was an air of arrogance to the way that he approached this with the media and the way that he decided to not follow the protocols? Is there also any surprise that the Green Bay Packers didn't force him to, that the Green Bay Packers didn't say, Aaron Rodgers, these are the rules, Aaron Rodgers, this is what's expected of you, and so do it? Because we saw Aaron Rodgers not do any of those things the entire offseason. And so for this to be something that comes out now that he slightly deceived, that he was a wordsmith with the way that he used his words as it pertained to vaccinations, I don't think that there's anybody who's sitting at their house doing this show or anyone sitting in that studio that believes that. This is a continuation of who he's always been, because he's a very good football player, and very good football players that play the position that he plays kind of get to do what the hell they want. And he's even taken that to a different level now, not caring about those around him, not caring about the rules and regulations, and thinking that he is above the law. But when your team kind of made you feel that way, walking back into training camp with a Kevin shirt on, maybe you are.
Aaron Rodgers is smarter than Ryan Clark. That's what he's really mad about. Because ESPN told Ryan Clark to bend over and take this jab, and he bent over and took the jab. Because he ain't man enough to tell him no. He doesn't stand for anything. And so when they said, hey, take this jab or you don't have a job, he bent over and took the jab. Aaron Rodgers came up with a way not to take the jab because he's a man. I love these tough guys. They all talk tough. But other than some stupid violence, ain't none of them tough. To get violent That ain't tough. That's stupidity. And it's the same stupidity that led you when ESPN said, hey, Ryan, I got this needle I need to stick in your rear end. You said, go ahead, boss. Whatever I got to do to get this check, I'm going to do. That's what you did. And now you're mad because Aaron Rodgers has a pair and has a brain and didn't want to take the stupid jab. We'll play one more. Mina Kimes, she's another one that had some smoke for Aaron Rodgers. And there's a bunch more. I'm just giving you the highlights. These aren't the only ones, but these are the highest profile ones. These are the people ESPN sent out to promote this big pharma BS because big pharma is in control of all of the television networks. They spend more money on all of these cable and television networks than anybody. And so they all have to bend over and sell big pharma's experimental vaccine. They sold out. There's no truth here. There's just what big pharma and their corporate overlords tell them to say. None of these people are qualified to be talking about the COVID vaccine. They don't know nothing about it. You're talking about a former football player and 2 sports writers. And now a female sports writer who's on TV talking about football because she's a pretty little Asian girl. But now they're physicians, they're playing doctors on TV, and they know exactly what Aaron Rodgers and Kyrie Irving should do. Play the Mina Kimes tape.
First thing I want to do is address something that we just showed that Aaron Rodgers said today, which was his hesitation about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because it was briefly pulled. It was briefly pulled over a small number of cases, and then it was returned to availability. Millions of people around the world have taken it. I don't think that should be allowed to go unchallenged. There's the football side of this, which is that he has made himself unavailable to his football team, and at best, what he said this summer was misleading, as you guys have said. Then to me, there's the human side, which is we are still in the middle of a global pandemic that has claimed millions of lives. And what we've got today with this interview is a public figure spreading misinformation about the best way to stop that pandemic, repeating ideas, opinions that have been universally debunked by the scientific and medical community, using his platform in a way that's not only self-serving in this instance, but I think frankly dangerous. He said something that really jumped out to me about how this is, his body and his choice. And Ryan, you're right, it is his body and his choice, but it's a choice that affects other people, not just his football team, but other humans, because this is a contagious illness. Far too few people seem to understand that still, and for him to perpetuate that, I guess it just shows us that he doesn't care.
That's a nice little Instagram model. Wonderful. And I've heard people say, Mina Kimes is cute. Nice little Instagram model. And she decent sports writer. I'm not gonna knock her. But what does she know about this vaccine? She said this man is self-serving and misinformation and dangerous. Everything that came out of her mouth in promotion of this experimental vaccine, self-serving, keeps her employed at ESPN. She had to take the jab because ESPN mandated, self-serving. And based on what we're learning now, dangerous. Young people, no business taking this vaccine. COVID does not kill young people. Athletes, professional athletes in their prime, no business taking this vaccine. And that's why the NFL 2 years, and again, the NFL is in bed with big pharma. The NFL is a television show. The television networks are dependent on Pfizer and all the pharmaceutical companies, because that's who advertises on television. That's who the NFL and the television networks are in partnership with. That's who's making money hand over fist promoting this experimental vaccine to you and your kids. This is a group of sellouts that all get to sit on ESPN and pretend like they're speaking truth to power, or they're looking out for the best interests of the people, and that they're more informed. They don't know what they're talking about. And there needs to be a lesson here. Shut your mouth. You don't know what you're talking about. None of these people, and again, that's why I wanted to start with Steve Deace laying the foundation. He's written books about this. He's done research. He and Daniel Horowitz have been leaders on this. Alex Berenson's done a bunch of research on this. They've been leaders on this. They're actually informed. And ESPN should be putting people like that on TV talking about this, not an Asian Instagram model, a big dumb football player, and 2 sports writers. They're not qualified. All they can say is what they're told to say. And the reason why I call them all stupid is because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they don't know. They don't have the self-awareness to sit there and go, I'm way out over my skis. I'm the one spreading misinformation because I haven't been trained for any of this conversation that they're forcing me to have on this television network. I'm just out here repeating big pharma talking points. You remember when Stephen A. filled in for somebody, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel or somebody, cracked some joke about ivermectin, calling it horse medicine or whatever. Just all uninformed stupidity. So many people took ivermectin during this COVID pandemic and helped themselves, including me. And I talked about it and told y'all about it. That thank God for Dr. Zelensky, and when I got COVID, got me a prescription for ivermectin from Dr. Zelensky. Rest in peace, doctor. You did me a solid and millions of other Americans. But you got Stephen A. pretending like it's horsemen. Group of sellout idiots spreading misinformation. And I'm calling them names, and I got to be careful, because I'm telling you, I don't dislike any of them. I really don't. I dislike what they do. I dislike the selling out. TJ Moe, welcome to the show. Help me out here. Am I right for insisting that Kyrie Irving, Aaron Rodgers? I meant to mention my guy Cole Beasley, another guy owed an apology. But aren't these guys owed an apology based on what we know now?
Oh, sure, but they're never going to get it, and it's clear as day why they're never going to get it, because anybody who followed any of this nonsense from the very, very beginning, remember that these people, the media in general, the sports media in particular, if you look at the Big Lead did a study years ago, about 96% of sports media lean to the left. And not just lean to the left. They hang out on the left. They are the diehards of the Democratic Party. And so this is the group that wants control, that wants you to believe everything Rochelle Walensky of the CDC says, everything that Anthony Fauci says, everything that Deborah Birx says. And from day one, it was, to anybody paying attention, a complete disaster. Remember, when we first started, Anthony Fauci was on record saying this would be nothing worse than the seasonal flu. Then he said, you'll never have to wear a mask. Why would you wear a mask? Everybody relax. Then he said, you must wear a mask or you're killing your grandmother. And then he said, I knew you needed to wear a mask the whole time, but I didn't want you to panic, so I lied to you. So he told you up front that he was lying to you to protect you. And on and on. I mean, this went from the very beginning. We just in April stopped wearing masks on planes, even though the air filtration system on planes is the greatest, outside of being outside, it's the greatest place you could be, is on a plane because of that air filtration system. And it wasn't because finally Rochelle Walensky or Anthony Fauci or any of these people cracked and said, okay, this doesn't make sense. It's because a judge finally struck it down. Remember, it was Biden versus Missouri. Our Attorney General, future United States Senator Eric Schmidt, took on Biden and that administration to keep employers from forcing vaccinations. Right? So nobody's ever admitted fault on this. And the liberal media, who backs all of these people, were the sheep following them off the cliff. And so if they ever allowed these guys to apologize, they would have to admit that they're complete imbeciles. They would say that, I'm sorry, I know none of this made any sense, but I went with it because they're the experts. We were wrong. They will never, ever admit that. First of all, everybody on television in general has far too much pride to ever admit that they did anything wrong. But more than that, I truly believe you had to be an absolute imbecile after the initial lockdowns to believe a word that these people said. And yet the liberal media continued, in all the clips that you just showed, bashing anybody who dared to question their expertise.
I'm saying what I'm saying today. I have to believe Kyrie Irving, Aaron Rodgers, Cole Beasley, they have to be saying this privately to their friends and amongst themselves, like, hey, we were right. Look at the media. They won't even acknowledge that we were right. They beat me up. And you know, I wonder if Aaron Rodgers has just been told, don't stir the hornet's nest, just stay out of it. Because to me, he could go on the Pat McAfee show and he and Pat McAfee could do 30 minutes on this and set the world on fire. But he probably just doesn't want the controversy of doing an I told you so moment.
That's probably true for Aaron. You know, Aaron just lost his best receiver. You know, he's trying to play out his career and probably has made enough waves in Green Bay that he's just saying, look, I got away with one there. Let's just play. Cole Beasley's the one that I would love to see go on this tour because he's the one. Look, Kyrie and Aaron Rodgers are at the top of their game, and they're established players that it's very difficult to get rid of. You know, so there would, if you just cast Kyrie Irving out of the NBA at this point, there would be an uproar. You could do that to Cole Beasley. And people would say, well.
No, it's been done. Is he on a roster this year?
I don't think he is this year. He also was towards the end of his career, and that's my point too. It's possible he was, you know, he's getting older. This is another reason why I think it was so disastrous for young NFL players to be used as the example, because they were the guys who have so much to lose. They're just, most of these guys in the NFL and NBA, the young guys, most guys are just guys. They're going to be there for a little while, hope to make enough money, seed money to go start a business. Hopefully they can pay off their house or something so they can start saving for their kids' college. That's where these guys are. Cole Beasley, as an older guy, expendable. You could argue he had another how long was he in the NFL? 10 years? He was around for a while.
Looks like it, 10 years. And last year, career high 82 receptions.
Yeah, with arguably the best quarterback in the game. Yeah, with arguably the best quarterback in the game there, with Josh Allen. Look, he's a useful guy, but he is towards the end of his 10 years. He could be around for another 4 or 5 years probably as a slot guy that, you know, your quicks go they go away much slower than the fast guys. You can be quick for a very long time. It's hard to stay fast for a long time. So out of the slot, he could have worked for another 4 or 5 years. This probably ended his career. To me, he was the guy with the most courage of anyone. And he also, I mean, remember, Aaron Rodgers did some wordplay here and tried to act as though he got vaccinated. Cole Beasley said, screw you guys, I'm not doing this. And he did it in New York, quite a different place to do it than Green Bay, Wisconsin. And so, you know, to your point about the apologies, it's not going to happen. And I guess Aaron could rub it in their face. But here's the thing about the media. They have the monopoly. So it's like the masses are so uninformed in America, and I actually thank God there's now digital media popping up, and if social media allows people's voices to be heard, it is helpful. It's becoming more fractured, and you can get proper information. But in general, the vast majority of people, especially the older generation, they're still turning on the news to see what's going on. And if those people don't report on it, I bet you the vast majority of people today still think the vaccines worked quite well and that everybody really should probably get them and it would help their health, and anybody who didn't get it is very selfish. I bet you if you did polling on that, that is the resounding opinion. And it's crazy because anybody who's actually looked at the statistics, looked at the studies, knows that that's crazy. But you got to be paying attention. So the media would just be telling on themselves and telling everybody, broadcasting that they're idiots. And why would they do that?
Here's the thing that disappoints me the most, though, TJ, is we're in this era of democratized media, disruptive media, alternative media, the blogosphere. And again, the blogosphere originally started out as anti-establishment. And now it's totally pro-establishment. And the fact that no one, again, okay, New York Times, ESPN, USA Today, mainstream media outlets don't want to cover, like, wow, Aaron Rodgers, Kyrie Irving, they may have been right. They may have been on the side. I get it. But this, at the beginning of the blogosphere, this is the kind of stuff the blogs covered relentlessly, the stuff that the mainstream media wouldn't. And now, again, take our whole week-long conversation full circle, and it's just like my disappointment with Barstool Sports is like they're just on the tit or looking to get on the tit of Big Pharma like everybody else, and you know, just humping out the same corporate message as everybody else. They're no longer rebels. They're no longer reporting alternative angles or thoughts on any of this. It's fun. Let's take Barstool out of it because it was and I don't know if you're too young to remember Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk in their heyday. He was a real disruptor. He was a real alternative voice on the NFL. And then I would say 7 to 10 years ago, he just completely pivoted and turned into a shill for the NFL. And he will not stray from the pre-approved narrative of the NFL. And that's just what I find so disappointing about this era. We're supposed to have all this alternative media, and we really don't.
Well, Jason, you know why? Because these small blogs have looked at the bigger blogs and they've said, hey, look, you can get bought up by the big companies. Barstool got a whole bunch of gambling money and they sold out. PFT got bought out by NBC. Right? It's like all of these guys, all the sellouts that you're talking about. Hell, Outkick got bought out by Fox. There's probably stuff they can't say now. All of these blogs now have figured out that they can make $100 million if they just stop with their rebellion. And so the only people, you basically had this conversation with Alex Stein. If there's enough money dangling out in front of you, virtually everybody sells out. So you've got to make that decision that you're never going to do that before that money's there. Because once it gets there, all you do is you look up and say, I can bend the truth a little bit for that much money.
I guess, but I just, and look, man, I like money. And I like what it can do for me, family, friends, whatever. But I don't know, man. I just thought more people would be different and could just see a bigger picture here in terms of like, what's the use of having all that money if our country turns into a joke and a laughing stock and toxic for kids? And that's, and I know I'm connecting a bunch of dots here and maybe everybody can't follow where I'm going, but again, when the media doesn't report the truth, it corrupts our entire society. And that's how, and again, it would take me forever and I don't have time, but just to explain how, like, the fact that we won't tell the truth about COVID is connected to the fact that we've somehow reached the conclusion that having 4, 5, and 6-year-olds go to drag shows and tuck dollars in drag queens is an appropriate behavior. And again, I know I just said a mouthful and I probably confused people, but trust me, it's all connected. When you devalue truth, you're setting off a toxic level of insanity that is overtaking everything. And so literally when I see, and because I spend too much time on Twitter and social media and look at it, libs of TikTok, when I see videos of little kids on stripper poles with drag queens, I just go, oh my God, this is what we've done to truth. That we've lost the ability to say, that's a sexual pervert, let's lock him up, and let's hunt down the parents that allowed this to happen and lock them up as well. Because I've lived long enough to know that if a grown man in a thong had a 5 or 6-year-old with him on a stripper pole, I'm telling you, in my day, that person would have been locked up and considered a pervert just 40 years ago when I was a kid.
If they made it to jail alive.
Somehow, yes, yeah, we certainly, and that guy would have been beaten up. Mm-hmm. But now we got to be tolerant, and we have to tolerate insanity to prove that we're diverse, inclusive, and equitable.
Telling you.
Hey man, thank you. I'm gonna give you the final say. If you got something else you want to say.
Last thing, our guardrails are gone. Truth disappears when the biblical guardrails disappear. We used to have the Bible that all of us followed as a country. Not every single person, but the country followed the guardrails that the Bible gave us. That gave us our objective morality. And so that meant that you needed to leave the world a better place for your children. Now, what people say about kids is that first, we should be able to abort them at will. But more importantly, why would you ever have kids? You're just killing the environment. The environment's more important than human life. Well, the Bible tells us that the environment is only here to support human life and that you are the center of this in your relationship with Jesus. So when you get rid of the guardrails of the Bible, this is the natural outgrowth of that. We're just now coming to a point where it's so apparent, and thank God for accounts like Libs of TikTok, that this has been happening for far longer than this account has been exposing it. It's just now we're all seeing it and trying to fight back, but it's like you don't get to this position on day one. You don't get here in year 5. This is probably year 10, 15 of this sort of nonsense going on, and now we're trying to fight against it, and it's way harder now.
Thank you, TJ. It's a good segue. We're going to bring in my former Ball State teammate, longtime friend, Lem Jones. We've been on similar paths. We didn't know it. We reconnected this week. And I'm going to be honored to bring Lem on the show, hear about his music, hear about his walk. Next.
These words are our religion, our regrets and our decisions. We all want to go to heaven with freedom. It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. All right, I can't wait to unpack this next interview, but I want to start and give you all a little background, a little taste of why I'm bringing on my former college classmate and teammate, Lem Jones. Earlier this week, another one of our former teammates, a guy named Andre Barnett, sent out a clip of this song, like, man, y'all won't believe who this is. Check out this song. And I got it, and so we're gonna play a little 90-second clip of a song of Lem Jones that I received earlier this week. Let's play the song.
They say crime pays, sunrise rays, zip tied and tase ain't the way I was raised. In these last days, ain't ashamed to let the world know I'm saved. Blood of the sun runs through my veins, born again, washed away all my sin. anointing my pen to disperse a hot verse without a curse. See, rather speak on his goodness and mercy. Never fell by blood, made bail from eternal hell. Quarantine while a thief comes to steal, kill, destroy everything. Not this king, according to John 3:16. Whosoever believes is proof, worship him in spirit and truth. What's the use to read, hear it, not take heed, no excuse. To he sits alone on the great white throne. Either be written in the Lamb's book of life or cast into a lake of fire and brimstone. Lord, how long must I wait, stay in faith on kingdom business before I end this? God is my witness, Alpha, Omega of all existence, repentance, eternal senses, deliverance and remembrance of Jesus. Reason is season, I'm coming out swinging for the kingdom. For the kingdom. I'll live for the kingdom. Kingdom. I'll die for the kingdom. Kingdom. I'll live for the kingdom. Kingdom. I'll die for the kingdom. Kingdom. I'll live for the kingdom. Kingdom. I'll die for the kingdom. Kingdom. I'll live for the kingdom. Kingdom. I'll die for the whoa.
So I get this song on my phone and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Lem Jones making rap music for the kingdom. I'm like, must be going through the same process. And so I'm sure Lem, when I reach out to him, is gonna be like, Jason Whitlock? Jason Whitlock does a show and talks about the gospel and Jesus Christ and building the kingdom. It's so amazing because, and Lem, welcome to Fearless. Good to see you, glad to have you. I'm hoping that I can be honest and say, like, the Lem Jones that I knew at Ball State, I didn't see this coming. I don't want to go too much, but Lem was a player. Lem was a player. I hope your wife's not listening.
She know.
Okay, all right. And so, anyway, man, it was so good to see this song. I gotta say, it's good to see you. We talked over the phone. I don't know how many years it's been since I've seen Lem. Lem, I dyed my hair because I'm on TV and I gotta try to dye my. And are you dyeing your hair? You got no gray in your hair. What's going on here?
Man, he's sustaining me, man. I'm blessed. Look great. Camouflage it just a little bit.
Got you. Anyway, tell us a little bit about your journey from. I believe you were in the 1986 Ball State recruiting class. I was in the 1985. And so we knew each other in the 80s, and we probably represented ourselves completely different than how we are then. So walk me through your journey, or what did we not know about each other when we were kids? Because clearly there were some seeds planted in both of us that we weren't showing then that we are now. But tell us a little bit about your journey.
Exactly. Well, my mom, Ann Peyton Jones, she definitely instilled the gospel in me as a child. But growing up and went off to school, got away, and just got away from my roots of growing up in the church. And just like you said earlier, we had some good times down there. But just now it's time to come home with, just undid all that. And it's time to get back to righteousness with everything going on. And like my whole ministry with this music really is salvation, man. I mean, you won't hear no prosperity and your time is coming, it's your season. I'm more concerned about your soul, man, after you leave here. And if you don't agree with anything else that I say here today, we all can agree that one day you have to leave here. And where will your soul reside for eternity? And there's only one way to get to heaven, and that's through Jesus Christ, the way, truth, and the life. No man coming to the Father except through me. So that's the route I've chosen. I truly believe it with all that within me, that he is the Son of God and died on Calvary and rose again on the third day. And I believe that with all that's in me, been baptized. And I'm just trying to spread the good news and help as many people as I can come to the knowledge of Jesus Christ.
You know, when we talked over the phone, Lem, you shared with me, I think that this is a song about the kingdom, but the title of your album, I think you said, was Tired of Running.
Yeah,
and you felt like earlier in your life, you were basically running away from those seeds that were planted in you.
Exactly. I named the title track Tired of Running, and it's very fitting. I was tired of running from my calling, and finally just humbled myself, came before his throne of grace and mercy, and now I'm here to put in work for the kingdom.
And so, is this the only song you have out right now? Tell us about this song and maybe some of the other music when did you first start rapping? I don't, you know, it doesn't, probably the rap thing doesn't surprise me, but when did you first start making music?
Started making music way back early 90s, really, 90s, early 2000. We had a CD out called Hustler's World, a heathen album. Wrong. Everything that's going on now that the kids talk about or whatever, that was the route. But yeah, had that out early 2000s and kept writing, didn't quit writing. And back then, even when we put that album out, a friend of mine that was on the album, Keith Turner, I told him, I said, man, I want to do a gospel album. He reminded me that I told him that way back then, and just came back home now. Now it's time to work for the Lord, put in that same energy for Christ as I did out in the world. So yeah, been rapping for a while.
So Lem grew up and I think still lives in Detroit. And I think you're living in an area where this message really needs to be heard.
Yeah, as you saw in the video, I shot that video right there in the trenches of Highland Park, Michigan. That's my hometown where I'm originally from. Highland Park, HP game all day. But went back to the trenches. My brother, G-Money, Gary, those guys showed up for me, man. I really appreciate them boys. They showed up. It meant a lot to me. Some of them guys you see in that video, they got a real testimony, and they showed up, and they're trying to change their lives around now. That's why they showed up, to show, hey, man, we trying to change. We can change too. No matter what we did in the past, we riding with you, and we gonna do this for the kingdom. I love them boys and appreciate them.
All right, so before we started taping, I believe I saw your wife helping you out. Give me a little update about Lem and his family. I believe I've heard you got some kids maybe, and do you have maybe an athlete? I can't, it seems like I've heard story. Anyway, update me on your life.
I got married, man. November will be a dub, bro. 20 years. I know you can't believe that one. Wow. You know Yosef, but she humbles me, man. She helps me out a lot, my helpmeet, and she's been there by my side the whole journey. I had twin boys. One of my sons passed. It's been now about 18, 19, 20, died in, and I try to put it out of my mind, but it's going on 20 years now. But I had twins, and one son, my son Karan, he ended up going to Eastern Michigan, which could have got him in Ball State. But he went to Eastern Michigan and graduated from Eastern Michigan, got his degree, and he's in the Navy now. I'm proud of him. He did real well. I pushed him to make sure he got his degree, and he did. Good kid.
Did he play basketball at Eastern Michigan, I thought I heard?
Yeah, played basketball and gonna go into Muncie and get put on a poster. Man, did you think I didn't lose it sitting there watching that game, man? Man, you go to Muncie with Paris McCurdy and them boys up in there looking and watching and get put on a poster? I said, man, no way. I said, I know I'm gonna hear about that. But maybe Doc mustn't see it, because if Doc would have saw it, I'd have heard about it. But yeah, I'm proud of it, proud of him.
All right, Lem is referencing friends of ours, former classmates at Ball State. Paris McCurdy, one of the great basketball players in Ball State history. Keith Stalling, another great player, was on our Sweet 16 team in 1989 or 1990. I can't remember. We lost to UNLV. man, we had some awesome times at Ball State, and it just so warms my heart to see you on this journey. It reminds me I'm doing the right thing, and that there's some spirit moving, I think, within all of us of our age group. Like, hey, things have gotten way, way, way out of hand. I hear you talk about the rap music you made previously. And I don't know if you remember this, Lem. I take credit for it. Maybe it's not 100% accurate. But I was the first person on Ball State's campus with the NWA album. And Gangsta Gangsta, that song. I remember riding around in my car. Man, y'all gotta hear this. Y'all gotta hear this. And now I get to my age and I'm like, I'm embarrassed. Like, why? This is what I was into, and I didn't know it would have this kind of impact on our culture and youth. And I'm just so happy to hear and see you trying to push the culture in a different direction. I think it's something we all need to do.
Let me tell you a quick side note as far as us reuniting. Now, after I committed to Ball State, Akron called me right after that. Coach Bob Huggins was the head coach, called me and offered me. And I wouldn't say like an idiot, but for some reason, I knew I wanted to go to school to play basketball, but I told him, I said, man, I committed to Ball State to play football. So I said, I'm gonna go on and go through with it. So I turned that down, ended up going to Ball State, meeting a nice bunch of guys and had a good time. And long story short, to the present day now, reuniting with you, you got your own podcast doing well, standing up for the kingdom. And it's funny, we come back together and it's like Christ is the centerpiece that brought us back together. And I don't believe in coincidence. And I believe that's a lot of the reason why we came back together, to be able to push this kingdom, stand up for the kingdom.
No doubt about it. That's certainly the same thing I'm feeling. Thank you so much for the time. Lem, I'm going to be back in touch because I want to hear more of your music. And we like to play original music on this show. And I'm actually looking for, because we got a song about harmony, we got a song about freedom. And I've been telling people I want a rap song about fearless, about the name of the show, Fearless.
Okay.
And, want some biblical values. I reached out and, he didn't follow up with me, but I don't know if there's a guy in Houston named Bizzle. If you've never heard of Bizzle, he's
nice.
Yeah, real nice. Reached out to him, but he ain't followed up on me. Ain't followed up with me. So why not throw my guy some work?
I got you, baby.
So,
Yos's to the rescue. I got you. I'm gonna take care. I appreciate you having me on your platform, man. I love you boys, all y'all. They don't know.
All right. Thank you, Lem. We'll reconnect soon. Great job. Get your Fearless Army swag at shopblazemedia.com/fearless. Smartest man on the show, Delano Squires. Next. All right, welcome back. Let's roll out to Washington, D.C. and bring in our main man, Delano Squires, to close out the show. This is a great way to end a Friday with the smartest man on the show, Delano Squires. He's written another outstanding column focusing in on what the Afristocracy or what our ancestors would think about what we've done, and particularly black ancestors, what we've done with the freedom and opportunity that they have provided. Delano, if you would take a few moments and walk us through your column today.
Sure, Jason. So first I'll start with the genesis of this column, right? You shared a video last week. We were talking about Coach Mike Hickman's death, and I made a comment about how corporate media is silent when it comes to any death of a black man that doesn't advance their political narrative. And I had someone who I know personally comment under that video, basically saying, this is not what our ancestors would have wanted for you. Now, I'm used to people deflecting. You know, when I make particular arguments, I'm used to them dancing around. I'm used to them dodging. I'm used to them dismissing certain, you know, things that I say. But this was a different type of response to what I was used to, and it made me think momentarily. Well, I wonder what my ancestors would think. And once I was assured that they would be proud of me for speaking the truth, I said, well, I wonder what they would think about sort of the larger condition of Black America, given what it is that they endured, and whether the they is, you know, Black folk who've been here since this nation's founding and before its founding, or people like me whose ancestors endured slavery in a different part of the world and came to this country seeking a better life. And I wanted to write about it. And what I did, I laid out a case that the Afristocracy, the Black leadership class, which I defined specifically in this piece, is comprised of politicians, pundits, professors, performers, and preachers, that class of Black leadership has squandered its inheritance and is the biggest barrier to progress in the Black community today for two reasons. One, they have abandoned the values of our ancestors, and two, they have no positive vision for our descendants. And I just used the rest of the column to lay out my argument, you know, across the board as it relates to that class of people.
Well, and one of the things you laid out very clearly that, you know, we talk about on this show all the time is the biggest betrayal is to our biblical values and biblical worldview. We've just abandoned all of that. And I think, you know, our reaction to everything and is how can we fix the white man and that will improve us. And people don't even understand, like when you have a biblical worldview, if you're a Christian, you know that you're actually in a battle with yourself, that improving you actually is how you improve the rest of the world. We've somehow come to the conclusion that improving them will somehow improve us and then improve the rest of the world.
Yeah, and I tackle that, and I talk first about the values that have been abandoned, and I say, you know, Black leadership of a different generation was grounded in biblical truths, right? Grounded in the Christian church. And the post-Christian model of Black leadership, which is epitomized both by BLM, the you know, Marxist, feminist, lesbian, I don't know if they consider themselves atheists, but they certainly do not consider themselves Christians, not publicly, talking about their values and their desire to dismantle the nuclear family, as well as the Black church. And it's unfortunate, but at times the Black church is, in effect, today leading the Black masses on a pathway straight to hell. And I don't use those words lightly. The Black church, in many respects, has abandoned many of the core foundational definitions and values that are found in the scriptures that it claims to preach. Now, these guys say that they're preaching a prophetic message, but the question is, who are they prophesying for, right? So I talk about, you know, how Reverend William Barber stands in churches and says that, you know, abortion is some sort of human right. But it's certainly a biblical wrong if he's actually preaching from his text. So I talked about that, and I talked about how unhitching itself from biblical values has also affected the quest for knowledge. And then, you know, I go into a list of people. I talk about Mark Lamont Hill and pregnant men. I talk about Michael Eric Dyson, who diminishes fatherhood and then begs white people for reparations. I talk about our friend, Brittany Cooper, who says the Black community does not need nuclear families to thrive. I talk about Carl Hart, a professor of pharmacology and psychology at Columbia University, who literally said he would rather his kids interact with drugs than the police. And he's a person who speaks positively about his heroin use and addiction. And then I close out that section with Greg Carr, who teaches at Howard University, who said that women seeking abortions are channeling the spirit of Harriet Tubman. Jason, our ancestors did not fight to learn to read and write when it was illegal during slavery, or sit in one-room schoolhouses to get the basics or pursue any other type of education so that their descendants could go to college to unlearn transcendent truths and timeless wisdom. But that's what they get now if they go to college campuses.
You mentioned, and I want you to expound on this because I think it's a really meaty point that you make. The corruption of these black intellectuals reflects the inevitable result of disconnecting knowledge from morality. And what I hear you saying in that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you can't disconnect truth from the moral authority espoused in the Bible. That's the problem, that truth and the Bible are peanut butter and jelly, and somehow we're acting like we got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but we've disconnected the two.
Right. Yeah, and I make that argument, fairly clear, and it's an argument that was assumed, years ago, but now you have to make it explicitly, right? So, and these are larger philosophical questions, like what is truth and where does it come from, right? What is morality? Why is murder wrong, right? Why is abortion wrong? Why people who think, oh, you can't legislate morality don't understand that all laws are moral because all laws make judgments of one type or another. So when these black intellectuals basically chuck God to the side and say, no, I can create my own truth, right? They are ripping knowledge out of its foundations. And when you rip a plant by the roots, right? When you tear it away from its roots, it'll no longer grow because it has nothing to nourish it. So, my argument is that the reason that you see people like Mark Lamont Hill say that men can get pregnant is because he's not tied into a larger a set of transcendent moral truths, right? He's making up his knowledge as he goes along, and for as much as they talk about conservatives, parroting white conservative talking, black conservatives, they'll say parrot white conservative talking points. There's not a single thing that these black leaders say they believe today that they would not abandon in 2 years if the political winds start to blow in a different direction. Jason, you and I know none of these people were saying 10 years ago were saying that a man could become a woman or a woman could become a man. If you said in 2012 that men could get pregnant, you would get laughed off the stage. But now this is accepted as some sort of timeless moral truth. And that's one of the problems that the black leadership class has abandoned that biblical foundation. And the other point, and you touched on this earlier, the black leadership class leads white liberals. That's who's following them. And I said, if you think of America like a hospital, and these people are always saying America is sick and black people are feeling the brunt of it, I would argue, and I argue in the piece, that people, and I'll use Ibram Kendi because I use him in the piece, Dr. Kendi for the sake of this argument, the sign on his surgical center is whites only. Because the only people that he seeks to treat for their metastasizing cancer of racism is white people. His books are geared towards white people. He's telling them how to not be racist. His physician's assistant, Nicole Hannah-Jones, is saying white people should send their kids to black schools and because integration is the only way, the truest and most sort of long-standing way for black kids to make educational gains. All of these people, every time, if you listen to what they say, they speak the language of racial justice and equity, but all of their moral appeals are to white people. Do this, say this, vote for this person, buy this book, buy this product. And when it comes to black folk, it says no. They say no. You don't have to do anything. There's nothing wrong with you. You have no illnesses, no sicknesses, nothing chronic, nothing that you have to deal with. Let me fix the white folk, and this will trickle down to your benefit. And I reject that completely. I don't want to be in a whites only hospital, right? So I'm tired of these people who show up, and when black folk like you and I say, okay, let's talk about these things. You say you want a dialogue, and then they say, no, we have nothing to say to the black community, nothing about our families, nothing about our family structure, nothing about how we approach education, our values, nothing about shooting each other down in the streets. all of our time and attention, all of our resources and intellectual capital has to be spent fixing white people. And that is an approach that I completely reject.
And this will be the final thought here, Delano, but it's the antithesis of the movement that our ancestors were a part of, decoupling themselves in the country from slavery. Because the mindset then was, I don't need white folks. I want to be free so I can take care of myself. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm very capable of taking care of myself. Let me be free. And the message of this current generation seems to be, I can't make it without you, white people. Please do better, be better, give me more, and then I can make it. It's everything their messaging is about. It seems the antithesis of what our ancestors stood for.
Absolutely, and the most frustrating part about it, and this is why I focus on the Afristocracy, because years ago the focus of Black intellectual capital was about the lower class, right? The urban America and crime and fatherless homes and so on and so forth, and that's still a big part of it. But my argument is that the Black leadership class is the biggest problem because they don't even allow certain discussions to take place. We're no longer in a time where you could have Tavis Smiley in the State of the Black Union, where you have a bunch of folks with different opinions going back and forth, sharpening each other. We don't have that space anymore. And what's frustrating about it is that these people don't even preach what it is that they practice. As I said in the piece, they brunch every Sunday. They go to wine tasting festivals. They got cleaning ladies. They vacation in Napa. Their passports have more stamps than a post office, right? Kids in private schools. They live in nice gated communities. And then when it comes time for them to say what it is that they did to get where they are, their message to the Black community is, well, nothing you do is really going to matter until we eliminate white supremacy. So I describe them as people with bulging waistlines who refuse to tell beggars where they've gotten bread. And that's one of my biggest frustrations with them. And I see this all the time, Jason. When I talk about marriage and family and fatherhood, the people who criticize me the most are the very Black folk who chose to get married before they have kids. They're the ones who take pictures in front of the Christmas tree in matching pajamas, and they got 2 kids, and they got the dog. But as soon as I say, hey, why don't you just preach the life that you live? They say, no, that's not what we need. It doesn't matter. I'm just one individual. So, yeah, my frustration with them is that they claim that white people are the people holding us back, a claim that I reject. But they won't even do the rest of the Black community a solid and say, this is how I overcame and this is what you can do too. So that is why I have such a frustration with these people. And I don't hate them personally. I just hate the ideas that they stand for. And if they think that appealing to my ancestors or calling me names is going to shut me up, they don't understand that just adds fuel to the fire.
Thank you, D. Great job as always. Great end to our week. And trust me, I love Delano's little analogy about the guy with the bulging waistline that won't tell you where he got the food. I've been very crystal clear. McDonald's. There's one on nearly every corner. It's awesome. I haven't had it in more than a year. But that double filet of fish sandwich, it'll hook you up. All right, that's it and that's all for us. We'll see you next week.
Freedom, I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be